Over the past week, Russian troops launched a series of missile strikes on Ukrainian energy facilities. Several strikes hit the areas near Dnipro and Kryvyi Rih, causing power supply problems in the region. In Ivano-Frankivsk region, about 10 explosions occurred near the Burshtyn thermal power plant. The nearest settlements were left without water, heat, and electricity for some time. Kharkiv came under concentrated fire, where strikes were reported in several districts of the city. One of them hit the Zmiivska thermal power plant, which led to the introduction of special blackout schedules. Ukrainian units, in turn, launched drones on Russian rear regions. In Vladikavkaz, an AFU drone landed on the Alania Mall shopping center, causing a fire. One person died and 2 others were injured. Enemy UAV raid on Grozny led to the crash of a passenger airplane in western Kazakhstan. The airliner itself was first diverted to Makhachkala and then to Aktau, where the crash occurred. As for the border regions, the AFU were still actively firing at them. In Kursk region, Lgov came under fire, where 4 residents were killed as a result of strikes on civilian facilities. At the same time, the Russian armed forces' operation to deoccupy the region is continuing. Russian troops are actively using UAVs and artillery to hit AFU positions in the part of Kursk region occupied by them. Units of the Russian armed forces are also gradually pushing Ukrainians out of the Sudzhansky district. On the southern flank, Russian assault units crushed the AFU positions in Cherkasskaya, Konopelka and consolidated their ground in the center of the settlement. In the neighboring Slobozhansky direction, the situation has not changed significantly for a long time. Positional fighting is taking place near Hlibok and in the central part of Vovchansk. In the Kupiansk-Svatove direction, the Russian armed forces are fighting in the vicinity of Dvorichna and Kupiansk. To the south, assault units squeeze the enemy into the southern part of Zarizove, moving even closer to Bohuslavka. In the Lyman direction, fierce fighting is taking place in the center of Novoye Horivka. Ukrainian units have entered this part of the settlement. At the same time, Russian units have established control over the Laptov ravine, advancing towards Terny. In the Siversk direction, positional fighting was reported at the Bilohorivka-Verkno-Kamyanska line. Russian troops also consolidated their position in the forest belts south of Vyimka in the course of a successful attack. In the Artemivsk direction, the main fighting unfolded among the ruins of the Chasiv Yar refractory plant. The Ukrainian command transferred additional forces to the site in order to hold their positions there. In the Oleksandrivske Kalinova direction, Russian troops managed to achieve significant success over the past week. In the central part, Russian units expanded their zone of control, advancing towards slag heap number 10. In the western part of the settlement, assault troops occupied the eastern slag heaps of the Dzerzhinsky mine. In addition, the Russian armed forces began an offensive towards Sherbinivka, where the fighters gained a foothold in the south of the village. Russian troops are also actively advancing in the neighboring Pokrovsk direction. On the northern flank, the Russian armed forces liberated 3 settlements, clearing Shevchenko, Vidrogenia, and Dakensike. To the south, assault troops broke through the enemy defenses and liberated Novoolenivka. By the end of the week, fighting was already taking place on the outskirts of Novojelizavativka, as well as in the vicinity of Ukrainka. The situation in the Kurakov direction was no less dynamic. On the northern flank, Russian units advanced west of Zoraya and cleared a pocket south of Krasna. In Kurakovo, the Russian armed forces liberated the residential area of the city and extended their control south of it. In the western part of the city, assault troops occupied the eastern part of the local thermal power plant. while the AFU maintained a focal presence in other areas. In the Zmiivska direction, the Russian armed forces occupied a significant area on the Rivnopil-Storozhev line. They then launched an offensive to the northwest of the latter, during which they gained a foothold on the outskirts of the Solina Gully. On the Zaporizhia direction, Ukrainian units counterattacked in Kamyanska. At the moment, Russian troops are holding their positions only south of the Yanchikrak River. In the Kherson direction, the sides engaged in positional fighting in the Dnipro Island zone. The Ukrainian units did not cease their strikes on the left bank, which did not come without casualties.